blasted the leader of the biggest democracy in the Middle East and one of America's strongest allies, calling him a racist.
I am very proud of being Jewish. I actually lived in Israel for some months. But what I happen to believe is that right now, sadly, tragically, in Israel, through Bibi Netanyahu, you have a reactionary racist who is now running that country.
Wow, that comes as a democratic socialist praises the work of communist Fidel Castro. Here with Reaction is radio talk show host Tony Katz, joining us from Mount Indiana. Tony, what do you make of that? Bibi Netanyahu is a reactionary racist.
Yeah, we should be clear about what it is that we saw here. And Bernie Sanders needs to understand that when you take the endorsement of Ilhan Omar, when you take the endorsement of Ocasio-Cortez, who likes to buddy up with Jeremy Corbyn, a virulent anti-Semite, when you have a surrogate like Amir Czar, who is the guy who in Rashida Tlaib's office placed the Palestine Post-it note over Israel, wiping it off the map, you don't get to talk about the problems with Bibi Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu has done more for America and more for humanity than Bernie Sanders has ever done. Bibi Netanyahu is a better man than Bernie Sanders. And anybody doesn't understand it, whether they be Christian or Jewish or what have you, is what we call for blunged and cup. They're out of their mind. This was embarrassing and pathetic from Bernie Sanders, and he needs to take a strong look in the mirror and maybe a sit down with a rabbi who isn't just like him.
Right. Tony, while you were just soundbiting right there, the President of the United States and Melania got into Suburban One for the trip to the South Lawn of the White House just a moment ago, the president, after that big trip to India. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about this. Here's a soundbite, Bernie versus the others on his Medicare for All. Watch.
What we need to do is to do what every other major country on earth does, guarantee health care to all people.
Let's do some maths. It adds up to 4 more years of Donald Trump.
It'll kick 149 million Americans off their current health insurance in 4 years.
This conversation shows a huge risk for the Democratic Party.
Tony, it is a huge risk. When you do the math, as we have heard, one of the moderators last night said, your math doesn't quite add up. Can you explain that? And he said, do you have a couple of hours? Because the math does not add up to a lot of people.
Yeah, he said, do you have a couple hours? And Joe Biden, on cue, said, that's the problem, which was really impressive that Joe Biden was so incredibly, for the most part, lucid in this debate. Bernie Sanders' plan is not popular. It's popular amongst the Bernie bros. It's not popular amongst the American populace. Now that he's showed you exactly how full of holes it is, the entire plan, which is on his website, is full of what ifs. Well, if I can put the tax on these people, and if I can put the tax on these people, those people are your grandma when you break it down in terms of stock transactions and retirement fund transactions. If he can put all these taxes on, maybe he gets something done. But he can't get it done. He doesn't have anything that's realistic. You take a look at Donald Trump, who just got back from India. Take a look at him in that stadium. 110,000 people cheering him and Prime Minister Modi on. You think they're ever going to cheer Bernie Sanders on with these kinds of plans, attitudes, and policies? All the other candidates are right that Bernie's plans don't add up. But their plans don't add up either. And not a one of them is able to really, truly differentiate themselves. The person who got closest was Amy Klobuchar last night, who seems to be the only person who realizes she's talking to voters. Everybody else is talking to each other, yelling at each other, yelling at the moderators, yelling at the guy in the rafters. Amy Klobuchar is actually talking to people. I might disagree with her on policy, but at least she knows who her audience is.
Well, there you go. Talking to our audience, Tony Katz from out in Indiana. Tony, thank you very much for joining us with your post-game analysis. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Steve.